Okay, so my name is Alex Rodriguez. As you can tell by my accent, I am not from the States, nor I live here, so I do apologize if if I'm telling something wrong, right? I'm from Mexico. I love tacos, right? I am a geek. I was doing a training back there in Mexico, and a student of mine told me that I was a Kanban lover, and yes, I am a Kanban lover, I have to admit it. And I'm also passionate about lean business agility. And basically the story that I'm going to tell is back from 2016, where basically I used to work for Bestday. For those that do not know what Bestday actually do, we're a travel agency, right? Like a Mexican Expedia, if you will, right? So back in 2016, a long time ago, not in a galaxy that far away, in Cancun actually, we used to have PMO, right? Some of you guys probably still have PMOs in their organization, right? Beautiful. So the way we worked was, you know what? Build me an empire fleet, right? There was demand, there was a request, and then, well, if someone there to ask, okay, yeah, but you know, we have to allocate capacity. Allocate capacity, what is that? Build me everything and build me everything ASAP, right? That unfortunately, that's how we used to work back in the day. Our performance was not that good, right? We only met 45% of the demand of the initiatives. So it's like when you are washing the dishes, right? And you're getting some of them done, and then you only met 45 of the demand, and then it comes a bigger pile, right? So that is not good. The increasing demand rate was 168. So as you can tell, there were a lot of dirty dishes in the washer. So that was not pretty good at all. But that time, not only we had a PMO, but also twice, I have to mention twice, the organization tried to implement Scrum, not very successfully as well. So there were teams that they were doing Scrum, whatever that means or meant. We were managing projects in the traditional way, right? Project management 101. Big scopes, we try to figure out everything up front, right? Beautiful. From the Scrum side, well, we used to have daily stand-ups. We had the Scrum Master, and therefore we were using Scrum, right? Fortunately, my mentor, Ivan Font, is not here. He showed me the way about Kanban, so I was like the first version of the Roach 1 team, if you will, right? So I am that guy. Oh, sorry. That guy, right? Just quick disclaimer. I serve at some point all of these tribes, right? I used to be, and I have to admit, a project manager. Yes, my name is Alex, and I used to be a project manager, right? Then, yes, I used to be a Scrum Master as well. And then, well, I became the Kanban lover, right? So what we did basically, since we were pretty bad basically at managing expectations and meeting demand, so fortunately Ivan had some experience, and he showed me the way about having this Kanban pod. It just basically means that when you have an organization that basically has an equilibrium of periods of equilibrium, right? I mean, things are getting done in that organization in just one way, right? And you want to insert change, it's very hard, right? Because all DNA points toward project management 101, right? So if you want to do something different, then you can try having these small POCs. In our case, there were these Kanban pods where basically there were small still project teams, but basically it gave us some freedom to experiment Kanban outside the culture of the PMO. Basically, right? No more steering committees, right? Weekly steering committees where everyone's asking questions and you're like there, you know, sitting in the front just trying to answer them all, and no one is actually helping you out. That's unfortunately, but that's the way it was for us. So this is my 101 Kanban. We used to call that Proto Kanban. Now we don't, right, David? Now we call it. This is the Kanban. Team level, probably level 0 in the KMM. But basically, we did something right here, and we were managing here a small project, and just FYI, all projects that we were managing that far, at this point, used to take around 8 months or so. So big projects, right? So here we did some stuff right, and the first thing that we did right was basically managing the workflow, visualizing it. That was pretty neat, and also limiting the work in progress. So we had this agreement, at least on a per person level, that we will not increase the work in progress, or our limit was up to 7, and that was basically it. And basically we were actually pretty good. As you can see, this is, sorry, I just don't, okay, here it is. So if you can see, this is the daily WIP, right? And this is the time frame. As you can see, this is a project back from 2017. And basically, we as a team, we were pretty good at limiting the work in progress. And what do you know? Just by doing that and visualizing the work in progress, we were able to get the social proof that we needed, and that was to deliver a project in 3 months or less. So we were like rockers in our organization, because all the big projects used to take 8 months. We were able to handle that in 3 months or less, so that was pretty neat. So it gave us what we needed, that social proof. And now we were ready to roll out, right? So I felt I was ready for static. I remember in 2018, I took the KMP, and I heard about static. I thought it was pretty cool. I thought I was ready, to battle that Raider, but oh dear Lord, wasn't I ready? But hey, I felt that I was. Anyways, the key point here is that I heard about all this cool stuff, metrics, the workflow, the explicit policies, and I wanted everything, right? Just as I missed this little part, I think it's the last step, right? And this, you need to socialize and negotiate the implementation. I mean, I do all this by my own because I was hyped. I wanted all the metrics. I wanted to, calculate the flow efficiency and everything, right? So unfortunately, those sticky notes failed, and I was the only one, going them to the floor and picking them up. You know what, guys? We need to take care about this stuff, right? And it was not that good, but what do you know? So the saga continues. We started getting a little bit better. Now, lesson learned, right? Socializing is very important, right? Not just doing everything but your own. And we got a little help as well. We were doing trainings at that point. Dragos was there helping us out, doing some training as well. And we started to Kanbanize and do the rollout for 18 still to be product teams. At that point, we were still software development teams. And we got pretty good, at least on the visualization part, as you can see, right? Here you have the upstream, the downstream, the limiting WIP, the explicit policies, the metrics, the socializing stuff. This was being selected. I mean, it was not, this was not me, but everyone were a fan of Star Wars as well. So this is the theme that we selected. And basically, we were the pioneers and early adopters of what I call now the rebellion. And I have to tell you, it was pretty cool because we intentionally put this Kanban board right in front of one of the B2C business lines. And basically, we used to have the VP of that business line right in front of this big board, right? And we gave him the training, and he knew what an expedite was. As you can see here, we had this small expedite. But at one point, we used to have 3. And I remember how he jumped from the stairs and asked the hard question. What's happening? Why we are burning out? Why do we have 3 expedites there? What's happening? What's going on, right? So it was pretty neat. And basically, that gave us some momentum to scale out Kanban, like I said, to 18 still to be product teams at that point. Different type of Kanban boards emerge, different themes emerge. It was like a competition at that point, right? Who had the biggest and badass Kanban board in the galaxy? It felt that way to me. Quick story about that board. That team didn't want didn't want to use a physical Kanban board at that point. We were using Azure DevOps as well. So they were like, you know, we are developers. We don't like physical stuff. We like all digital things, right? So they didn't want to have this board. But what do you know? There's this small thing called peer pressure, right? So when almost everyone in the organization was using physical Kanban board, they have to jump in. So lesson learned number 2, right? I mean, start with your early adopters, move all the way through early majority, and then what do you know? Peer pressure will do the rest. So it was pretty neat. And they actually ended up with the biggest and pretty cool Mario Bros. Kanban board. So it was cool. There was even teams that actually celebrated the first year that they were using this Kanban board. So that was pretty sweet as well, seeing these guys feeling happy about being relieved from overburden. So we were in the right path. But what about the metrics, right? So far, so good. We were doing great or not? And this is where the fun begins because, oh my, we were doing Scrum. We used to have these time boxes, 2 weeks time boxes. So we were supposed to be somewhere around here, but unfortunately, the lead time was around 71 days or less. So we were not in a good place, but hey, we will, what do you know? We just need to keep moving forward. And 3 months later, we used to manage the lead time at least from 71 to 50, 90 days. So that was pretty sweet. But then something happened. And then something is that a new CPO joined our company. And you know what happens when new leadership joins, right? We don't like everything that you're doing, right? There's where you have to use your Jedi tricks. You know, these are not. This is not the framework that you're looking for, right? Let's continue, move on. Let us do our thing. But I mean, he brought this concept about doing product development, and I have to say, fortunately, he brought new team members as well. And unfortunately, those new team members, these product managers, were key stakeholders that were not really on board with this Kanban stuff, right? They were joining from different organizations, and in their organization, they were using Scrum, right? And they were using something else, even Safe. So it was pretty hard for us, but we did our best to convince them, right, that managing the work items and the work that actually needs to be done, it's better than managing or micromanaging people, right? But what do you know? You have to start somewhere, and it wasn't that good at that point, but it's just what it was. And another threat that we have in our ecosystem was 40-year. Yes, you heard it right, 40-year technical debt. We used to have a database in Access, so that is not good, right, for an e-commerce business. Having a database in Access is not really good at all. And of course, an obsolete software development techniques as well. So some painful changes were required, not only just on the Kanban side, but we had to move into the product development stuff and also into these DevOps things, right? At the end, we are in the software development industry, and yes, we need to use the cool stuff out there, right? Like continuous integration, continuous deployment, having a different mindset, right? Those team members being able to do an upskilling, right? Then being able not just to work on the downstream, but on the upstream and the operations as well. We work in that thing like for a year or so. And in 2018, I was fortunate enough to hear about this cool thing called the KMM. This, I think, was the version number 1. And well, for me, it was pretty sweet because we were experiencing a little bit of, you know, what's next and how do we get there, right? Probably you guys have tried a lot of stuff regarding, you know, this maturity level stuff. Fortunately, this helped us out really into how to grow maturity into teams and how to avoid overreaching. The first thing that I did, remember this big Kanban board that only was for myself, I was doing overreaching. I learned that from David in 2019 afterwards. But yeah, so it really helped us out to see the benefits of how to introduce change in a new ecosystem and how to deal with it, right? So 5 months after that, we were getting pretty good. Unfortunately, we were still not there. 47 days, still a lot to go. But hey, it is what it is, right? Unfortunately, if you were there doing with us a team service delivery review, you will find out these hard key takeaways, right? Like limiting WIP. I mean, it's something that you can say so easily, and doing it's really hard. I mean, managing just to say no, yes, that is important, but probably not at this point, is really hard, right? So as you can tell, we were not really good at limiting the work in progress. And then trimming the tail, right, is another challenge, because here's where all these waiting times, waste lives, right? And doing this continuous improvement thing, it's easier said than done, but at least we can start asking questions like, hey, you know what? What happened right here, right? Why did we took more than 100 days to deploy something into production? Was it even that important? Should we have started or not, right? So those key takeaways, at least we start to get from the metrics. So that was pretty sweet. Unfortunately, at this point, as you can tell, we were running out of time, right? The VPs of that organization were getting a little bit desperate. You know, they wanted to see results and they wanted it now. So we, at least myself, asked for a little help from the portfolio Kanban, because somehow I realized that you can apply Kanban at different levels, right? Just like Klaus said. So I thought, if one of the problems that we have is that we are starting stuff that we are not finishing, probably we shouldn't have not started at the first time, right? And then the other thing is how to get alignment between teams, because you get blocked or you cannot move forward because there is a dependency from another team and the other team does not think that this is important for them, right? So things start to age, and that is not good, right? So I thought I could give it the portfolio Kanban a try. And well, man, it took us a while to get started, like 3 months. And that's where I realized that not even our top managers were really aware of how much WIP these guys actually had on the upper level, right, on the strategic level. It took us 3 months, and I'm not kidding, 3 months just to visualize all the initiatives there in the wall. And it was painful, but it has to be done. This time I learned my lesson, right? Do not overreach, start simple, right? So this Kanban workflow design was not that complicated at all. It's just, hey, you know what are we working on? The definition of work is basically understanding what is the problem that we are trying to solve, and then what data actually backs up the problem statement, right? And then we were just breaking down this initiative into epics, features, and then we learn about this reverse commitment. Do we feel that we have everything that we need to move forward? This is our commitment point. And then basically the build stuff was just breaking out all this workflow into the team level, right? So this is where you will have all these design solution, build solution, validate solution, and deliver solution for each one of the Kanban boards. As David said, at the end, the organization is just an ecosystem of services, right? And they are just interacting within themselves. So, oh man, what did I did? Okay, here we go. So we also design a ticket, right? At the portfolio level, I think you all agree with me that there are 3 questions that we need to respond somehow, right? Is this viable, right? I mean, does this worth our time, our effort, right? Is this something that the customer actually desires? And can we actually do it? So those are the 3 questions that we were trying to at least respond from this cool technique that also David taught us, the option filtering, of course, with a little bit of Mexican salsa in there, if you will. But basically, we're trying to understand the risk and the value between doing things. And we experiment a little bit with the colors just to visualize, you know, how much risk and how much value we were actually getting from those initiatives, and if they actually worth our time just to do the discovery part, because doing the discovery side, it's painful, but it's not as painful as starting something that is ready to be deployed, but you cannot deploy it because, what do you know, there's a dependency from another team, and you cannot deploy it until the other team deploys their stuff, right? So this is what we actually did. Then we designed our own cadence. We used to have this portfolio Kanban stand-up meeting, right? We used all this neat stuff just to understand what we were getting actually out of this stand-up, what are the inputs, the outcomes, and who were supposed to be there, in which format, when, and how long, right? So again, this is from the KMP material as well. It was pretty sweet. And then leadership, right? This is Nacho Vacino. He used to be our chief product officer, and I convinced him to do the kickoff because he was the alpha, right, in the room. So again, another neat trick. If you can influence from the organization from the alpha, it's always easier, right? So it was not me. Now it's the CPO. So this is how our portfolio Kanban started. As you can see, the hypothesis was that there was a lot of dependencies, but what do you know? At the end, there were not that many at all, right? So visualizations and transparency rules, because at the end you can assume stuff, but when you start actually visualizing, then you get another insights as well. We use some of the KMM practices, but now at the portfolio level, at least you can recognize some of them. Like this, for instance, we use tokens for the initiatives. So just like in a team, you will have like this per person WIP limit when you're starting, right? And you don't have any idea of what is the capacity of that team, and you have just 14 members, and you say, you know what? Let's limit the WIP per person, right? So 3 tokens per each person, and if we are out of tokens, then no one should be able to start anything. Same concept, but now being applied at the portfolio level. That's why you see these tokens here. So we gave them 3. Why 3? Because that was our best guess. We didn't have any metrics to back up why 3 or 4, but we know that there's magic between 3, right? Because 3 is not that less, but it's enough, 3 initiatives. I think they're more than enough. And then we experienced a little bit with the visualization of the dependencies as well. Here, using some of tokens just to understand if there was a dependency, just connect the dots, because we tried out the string stuff. That didn't work for us. So we tried to come up with a different solution, right? 6 months later, this was our reality. So we were able to finalize only 30 initiatives. And you can see again, the lead time, 212 days. So it's almost like a year, man. It was taking us a lot to get stuff delivered. So, but hey, again, it is what it is. So moving on, at least on the team level, there was some benefit about shaping the demand, right? Because now that at least we know that if we are starting something, that something has to be important, and everyone needs to be aligned about that, what we need to achieve this. You can see how the demand shaped very well now that we have this alignment in place, right? This is on the team level. So on the portfolio level, we were still pretty young, if you will, but at least on the team level, we were actually doing stuff. And again, same issue, but now on the portfolio level, right? We were wanting to limit the WIP with the token, but always a new initiative came into the ecosystem, and we have to deal with it, right? So introducing these changes at that level was something where I needed some help, and that's where I got some help from my friends. And it was pretty sweet because David told us a little bit how to introduce these changes, right? And he told me, hey, you know what? There's a new practice called limiting WIP, but now on the portfolio level, and that was there. But we needed the feedback loop. So I experienced a little bit with this draft, right? That was my vision of how can we have a visual loop, a feedback loop, while we were doing the stand-up, and then getting all the benefits of the peer pressure as well, right? Because if you see these tokens are we respecting the WIP limit? That is a feedback loop mechanism, right? So at some point, all these were red, but then the green start to emerge because no one wants to stand there, and look, I am the only one that I'm not limiting the whip, so I don't want to be that guy, right? So peer pressure again, doing a nice trick, and then having all these metrics in place just to understand how are we doing. So that was pretty cool, and of course, that will not have worked at all if we don't have acts of leadership, right? At this point, leading by example, right? It's not just about, hey, we want to have agile teams, but we are actually on the strategic level trying to change or shift our mindset at least a little bit, so that was pretty cool. And then 3 months after we introduced that change, we agreed that the key problem that we were trying to solve is the time to market, right? So we started to visualize the aging of those initiatives. If you can see, we changed the dependency and non-dependency thing, and actually we started visualizing the leading indicator, right? The aging of each one of the initiatives. So we started, these ones were the ones that were they were taking about more than 60 days or so. And I even downloaded this app. Have you guys seen, how this called, the show of Game of Thrones? Any fans in here? Oh, yeah? Have you seen where the queen is walking, the walk of shame? I downloaded that sound, so whenever the product manager, right, started all the way here, come, you know what, we have this, I was like, shame, ringing the bell, right, shame, shame. So what do you know? That actually works as well. We were doing some probabilistic forecasting as well. There we are just not, we were trying to just communicate that this initiative actually changed the forecast 3 times. And then we started experiencing a little bit with the tokens and so. But at the end, after introducing those changes, we were able finally to limit the work in progress on the portfolio level, right? We were able to at least manage that 50 or less WIP limit, so that was pretty sweet. And then you can see this is a semester, right? 6 months of doing portfolio Kanban. Remember, 30 initiatives and 212 days. We were actually in half the time, just in 3 months, we were able to duplicate the throughput, right? And what do you know? We were able to reduce the lead time as well. So that really worked really good for us. But what about the user stories? Remember that the vision that we were on was actually to deliver value consistently in 14 days or less, because that was our time box, 2 weeks. Right? So you can see how shaping the demand and getting good at the strategic level actually help out the teams. And here you can see the metrics, right? Here is where we stayed in 2018. This is what we did in 2019. And then in 2020, fortunately, we were, I think, at least fit for purpose, because the pandemic hit. And as you know, the travel industry was pretty hit hard, but fortunately we were able to manage a lot of stuff during that period. Like, for instance, how do we not lose revenue because customers are canceling everything, right? So we shifted really quickly in our strategies of how can we manage, right, to still provide some value to those customers, even though we are not allowed to travel anymore, right? And as you can see, we were able to sustainably deliver value between 14 days or less. That was pretty sweet. And what about the people, right? We have discussed a lot about metrics, but what can I tell you? I can tell you that true collaboration was actually achieved. I saw a lot of changes. Like, for instance, people used to walk to the board, to the portfolio Kanban board, and start having discussions in the board without having the stand-up. So that was pretty sweet, right? When you see your baby and then you see that it start walking, right? I was like, yay! I am so happy. And then this after-party conversation, this one was actually a discussion where we had to take a hard, these guys were about to release something, these guys as well, and we had to make a call, and then we have this after-party conversation. So I can tell you that collaboration actually improved a lot. And then the portfolio stand-up, when we started, it was like a desert. No one actually or talk or do anything, you can actually saw, I don't know how to say this in English, but you can see the, the big ball of the West, just flowing through the room. But then, what do you know? People were happy, we were celebrating that we are actually finishing stuff. The values are now realigned, and it was pretty sweet. So I can say that stakeholders all over the galaxy were also happier because we were predictable, right? As David said this morning. So it was pretty sweet. So my key takeaways, now I'm starting all over again in a different organization. Now I'm on the banking industry. And now I am starting definitely with the portfolio level, right? Because I understood that if you start from the team level, it's pretty hard to make change, right? It's easier to insert changes at the strategic level. And for instance, right now we are starting the new year, fiscal year, and we are limiting the work in progress there, right? I'm trying to do not start things that we are not able to, or that we will not be able to finalize. So stop starting, start finishing rules, right? So that is pretty much from my side, guys. Of course, this would not have been possible without the hard work of my teammates, right? I owe them everything. It was a team effort, and I feel really proud to have achieved this with all these guys. So I do apologize if my English was not pretty good. I did my best, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Great presentation. I enjoyed. Question. You had all physical board, right? I loved it, right? After pandemic hit, 2 questions on that physical board. After pandemic hit, how do you manage that? Number 2, along with the same, how do you pull the metrics out of it? That's the one key thing the leadership is like. Metrics. With physical board, no metrics. So they wanted metrics.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, on the metric side, basically what we were doing is we were downloading those from Azure DevOps, because unfortunately, the blogging that we have for that tool allowed us to have metrics, but just on the team level. So we came up with an automated way of merging all those metrics into one single board. So we downloaded, we developed this software that actually grabbed all these metrics from Azure DevOps and then pulled it into a CSV format where we have this tool and then upload them right into that tool. So that's how we handle. And the other question was? Oh yeah, that is pretty cool, because I was not able to explain why oh my god, I was not able to explain why I love so much the physical boards until the pandemic hit, and that's where it hits me that we are social people, right? We need to interact with someone. We need to express ourselves, and I mean, even though we have all these great tools, it's pretty hard, right? I mean, sometimes they just shut you down. You cannot see their faces, whatever. So basically, when the pandemic hit, we were used to have all these cadences in Teams, so it wasn't painful. But what we lost during the pandemic was the social interactions. That's where I think we struggled a lot, right? The engagement. We have them the same replica, but in Azure DevOps. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, during the pandemic, did you keep the physical boards? And if you did, how did you keep them updated? And then after the pandemic, once they started only having, if that was the case, the virtual boards, did they want to go back to the physical boards again? Because again, that's a discussion that keeps coming up.
Yeah, during the pandemic, all of them died, unfortunately. That's it's cold, but that's the way it was. But after the pandemic, they all wanted to go back to the physical board, because yes, having all these digital things is really cool, but I think, and I speak for myself, it's pretty neat that I can see you guys here, right now, and not on a chat or on Zoom or whatever, right? So some of them are really hyped to be back again, using the physical boards. Yeah.
It's just a question about the visualizations. It was really neat how you jumped from the team level up to the portfolio level, and that really helped you. You needed to limit weight up there as well, and
Right.
visualized first of all. Did you? I guess it depends on the size of your team and everything. Did you do anything at the value stream level, or did your team boards end up becoming end-to-end boards, or how did you manage that level?
Yeah. So basically, our board was the product discovery, because we started as project teams, right? And then the journey was, how do we become product development teams, right? So we have to shift a little bit the upstream to product discovery, meaning how do we understand what value means for our customer, and then how do we experiment very fast to have some metrics about what we think the customer wants, right? Like, for instance, running small experiments such as having these landing pages, having some buttons here and there, just to understand if that is what the customer actually wanted before we start building stuff, right? So product development or product discovery was on the upstream, and then on the downstream, at the team level, we had the build stuff, right? So on the portfolio level, what we did is, before the start of every quarter, we discuss about the new initiatives, right? And trying to answer those three questions, right? Is this viable? Can we actually afford to do this, right? Is the customer actually want this stuff, and can we build it? So basically, shaping the demand on the portfolio level for us meant at least being able to understand those three questions and do a risk assessment about, what dependencies do we have there, and if this is something that actually worth our time doing. So basically, just to summarize, at the portfolio level, on the upstream, we basically try to answer those three questions, right? And then break out these big initiatives into epics and then user stories. And on the team level, product discovery and building features. Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about how the employees experienced the changes you were going through? It seems like the operational effectiveness improved dramatically, and I would hope that people felt it was a better place to work as a consequence, but you didn't really talk at all about how the humans in the building were experiencing the changes. And now, looking back after some time, you've moved on to a new job, you probably still know a lot of these people.
Yes.
Like, how do they feel now? Right? Has the organization maintained this same level, or have they slipped back? Or, and if they have slipped back, how are people talking about it? But start with, how did they experience it in the first place? And if it made them feel better about coming to work and being part of it, did it feel like something that was special in their career?
Oh yeah, and I can actually answer that question, because I now have some friends of mine that actually are now working with me. And before I joined this new organization, they were already trying to implement Kanban themselves. So what I'm trying to say here is that people was actually relieved from overburden, and they were embracing this new way of working, right? They actually like it a lot. Some of them left the company after the pandemic, right? Because we have to reduce our operation really hard. But yeah, I mean, I can tell you, because I spoke to them even before I joined this new organization, and they told me that they wanted to work in the way we used to work at Bestday. So now I have pioneers and early adopters already embedded in the new organization where I'm starting to working for, and it's pretty sweet, because now we have a bigger early adopter tribe and pioneers. So we are really hyped to do this all over again. And yeah, they kept where they are still. I mean, one of the line of businesses in Bestday is B2C, right? It's basically the team that actually takes you from the airport if you visited Cancun, right, to your hotel or to visit some tours or whatever, right? So that team stayed in Cancun and they still continue to do Kanban, even though they don't call it Kanban, right? But at the end, it's Kanban. Just go with the flow. That's what I taught them, right? Go with the flow. I mean, if someone tells you that you're doing Scrum, say whatever, hey, go with the flow. What actually matters is delivering stuff to our customer, but they're using the Kanban practices. That's the way it is. So yeah, thank you, David. Did I answer those two questions? I hope so. Yeah. I think Dragos.
No, I don't need the mic. Yeah, we do. I think the amazing story is they invited me over, and the amazing story and tying back to scaling that business, Best Travel, from what I was told, started with his family many years ago. I don't know exactly how many. I don't want to put the wrong number, but it started with his family, you know, kind of hustling in front of the airport, waiting for tourists and say, hey, where do you need to go? We'll take you there. And then they started to rent some rooms in their house, and then they got some extra houses, and they started to rent houses, and then it became the largest travel company in South America.
Right.
It's fantastic. You know, 4 years ago you had me over, so thank you. Going to Cancun for business.
Yeah.
Take it. If you have that opportunity, don't
Only
pass
business.
it on.
Any other questions today?
So of course we're back here at the 2020 edition. The first one of these was 2009 in Miami, and the idea came about from an online discussion group, and people were saying, you know, it's boring just sending emails to each other. We should get together and have a face-to-face meeting. And Joshua Kerievsky and I suggested that we do Kanban in Cancun. And then when I looked into it, I realized it was a long way for the Europeans to come. So I sort of drew a line on the map and realized that to get to Cancun from Europe, you have to pass Miami.
Yeah.
So that's why we ended up in Miami for the first conference. And we've never done Kanban in Cancun, but I'd really like to do the leadership retreat in Cancun.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe next year.
Nice.
I've already discussed it internally that's one of my ambitions, and I suggested we come talk to you guys, make it happen. So maybe we can do a Cancun conference.
Oh yeah.
Let's see if
Oh,
we can
yeah.
make it happen.
Oh yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you.